All right. Welcome, everybody. Got a couple familiar faces, a couple of new faces. John, why don't you just tell us real quick where you're coming from and tell us.
I'm John Harper from McKinley Packaging in Covington, Georgia. I'm the plant manager here.
Excellent. Nope, I just met all your leadership a couple of weeks ago over there.
Yep.
So excited to continue to work with you guys and looking forward to an opportunity to come down and see you guys down there.
All right, sounds good.
And then, Jamie, how about you, real quick? Gonna give us an introduction for yourself?
Sure, Jamie Nanal from McKinley, Wisconsin, Health and Safety Manager.
Okay. Awesome. Nope. Yep. Enjoyed meeting Bob last week, or I guess it was 2 weeks ago now.
Awesome.
Good deal. And then Mike and Veronica, a couple of my course graduates from previous years. If you want to just do a quick Reader's Digest introduction for yourselves. Mike, we'll start with you.
Sure. Mike Silverman, former IBMer, Houston, Texas.
All righty. And yeah, I guess Veronica just had to step out, but we'll catch her when she comes back. She works in the finance world out of Texas. All righty. Well, good deal. Yeah, July ones, you never know. This time of year, a lot of people on vacations, a lot of other stuff going on, but that's all right. I always worry about what people get out of it, not the number of people that join. Yeah. So for the new folks on there, this is a discussion. This isn't a lecture. You get an opportunity. We're going to have good conversations. We're going to talk about stuff. We always pick a leadership topic and we figure out, well, what does that look like for us, and how do we use that to improve our leadership skills? So I'll call on you lots. With four people, there'll be plenty of time for everybody to contribute and to chat and enjoy it. But we're going to talk a little bit about coaching, and don't do a lot of slides, but still something worth looking at. There's a couple visual things that'll be worth looking at. But for the most part, we're just going to have good conversations. So when we think about coaching as a leadership, not necessarily like an athletic coach, when we think about coaching as a leader, what comes to mind? And Jamie and John, I'll let you guys go first because Mike and Veronica already have the answers.
Yeah.
Jamie, what about you? What do you think about as coaching as a leader?
Well, I think there's a fair amount of listening that needs to happen, from the individual. And for me, as far as coaching, it's not giving the answer, but really leading them through the process to come up with the solution and being there to support it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those are all very, very valid, important points. John, what about you? What do you think of when you think of coaching?
So a lot of times it's getting them to do what you're wanting them to execute on their own. And a lot of times, they may know the answer, but they don't know they know it, or need help getting there. And a lot of times we do have experience in what they're trying to get done. So we're trying to learn from our mistakes a lot of times and give that information to them.
Yeah. So Veronica, I'll let you kind of chime in here a little bit. How do you see, coaching as different than, say, training?
Ken, I'm going to have to take a pass. I've got my phone absolutely blowing up here, so I'm going to have
Bummer.
to check out. Sorry.
No worries. Mike, I'll transfer it over to you then a little bit. How do you see, coaching as a little bit different from, say, training?
Yeah. So coaching is all about the mentality of helping the individual, kind of like I always see the metaphor of the sports teams, but in reality, the coach is the person that's there that wants to help them grow. One of my absolute favorite shows of all times is Ted Lasso. Best management show of all time. Not
Yep.
kidding.
No,
But
I love it.
yeah, one of the things about it is you want to help get your people, you want them to be the best versions of themselves. So with coaching, it's about helping that individual see the potential and go through. You're not going to have all the answers as a manager. You're as a leader. You're not going to know what they're going through in their day-to-day life. You don't know what's going on in their mind. Instead, you're there to kind of help guide and help support them to come to that decision. It's the same concept as if you teach a man to fish versus you give a man to fish.
Yep.
So being able to kind of be that individual can rely on, that coach to kind of help them grow internally, they'll eventually come up with the right answer. And if they don't, you can do what Ken does. May I provide you my feedback or recommendation? Yes, of
Yep.
course, let's go through. And then be able to go from there. But being able to be that coach is way more valuable. As somebody like a direct report, you need somebody to be that coach for you to help guide you rather than opposed to tell you what to do.
Yeah. And I think that's the differentiation. I love training. Training is awesome. Training is trying to replicate some particular skill. Okay. Operate a machine in a particular way. Great. Love doing that. But this is a very specific skill set and a very specific opportunity. And John and Jamie, you both kind of really highlighted a lot of that. This is about providing the individuals the opportunity to figure out for themselves. Training is telling them what to do. Great. Love it. There's a time for that. But there's also a time to facilitate the learning and allow them to kind of figure it out for themselves. And then both of you guys really hit a lot of that, which is good. It's what we want to think about. The paradigm that I kind of think about as well, we talked a little bit about the sports coach or, that trainer, that sports coach basically just tells people what to do. And they're all the way on this end of the pendulum. On the far opposite side of the pendulum over here is you get an opportunity where you only ask questions. And there's no telling, there's only asking. And my goal is to help you kind of think about when is the right time to shift that pendulum and when is the right time to do these skills. And it's not all the time. Coaching is not all the time. It's not the right skill all the time. It's there are times it says, nope, I got to train you what to do, or nope, I got to tell you what to do right here. But when you have that opportunity to coach and ask questions and provide them the opportunity to figure it out for themselves. And as Mike said, sometimes they won't get the same answer. They'll get an answer that's at least workable. But that's really what we want to think about when we think about coaching. It's that very specific skill set of asking lots of questions. And Jamie, you hit one of the other critical components on there, listening. The coach should listen more than they talk. If you're talking more than you're listening, you're probably not coaching. You're probably doing something else. And again, I'm not saying any of those other things are bad, but for our discussion, we're going to very specifically focus on that. So in that kind of light or in that context, thinking about that as coaching from asking questions and allowing you to figure things out, what are some of the best coaches you've had in your life that do that for you well? And what was it about them that was effective for you?
I had one of my coaches / mentors that kind of let me go over there and struggle, even if it was all day. And then, I was pretty hard-headed as an operator. And finally, when I was broken down far enough to where I'd listen, he'd come show me what I needed to go work on.
All right. So he allowed you that opportunity to kind of struggle a little bit, didn't come in and save you right away, but allowed you that opportunity. And that's sometimes tough for us because we're like, just go do this and it'll be done.
Yep.
Yeah. So that takes some patience right there. Yep. Jamie, what about you? What's a good example of somebody who's done some coaching like that for you? And what was it that made them so effective for you?
Yeah, so one of my past managers who happened to be the COO, his he goes, you can't control everything, and with that, he said, as long as you can kind of guide it, get your arms around it and maneuver it or navigate it, to the direction that you want, you can be successful that way and not, get caught up in all the details, and not everything's going to be perfect.
Yeah. And I think that's important, is that when you use this tool and you use coaching, it's not a linear path, and you sometimes have no idea what path it's going to take. And you got to be okay with it not being a linear path and not going exactly the way you thought it would, because it doesn't work that way. If you want a linear path, okay, again, different skill. Yeah. Mike, what about you?
Well, I've had some really good coaches, including Ken Smith, but I didn't directly work for him, so that doesn't count. one of the best coaches I had was at IBM. I had a struggle because being a manager was a secondary task. It wasn't a primary responsibility, meaning most people were put there because they were good at other things and they just kind of threw in. So they didn't really care. What made this person stand out so much was not only did they have the ability to help coach when necessary, be able to mentor, they held me accountable where it mattered, and they gave
Mhm.
me the reins to be able to fail, and still be there, kind of like what you mentioned, to like pick you up, let you go down the rabbit hole to an extent, and then let you bring you back up. So kind of having somebody to kind of be there, play those roles, still hold you accountable because you need somebody to be your accountability buddy, to make sure that you're doing what you're doing, but also kind of being there, being that advisor, and really kind of seeing you transform in that second that it dawns, like, oh my God, I just got it. And sometimes that's immediate, and sometimes that takes a while. But yeah, I would say that's probably key.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. Annette, you able to come on and share maybe some of the stories and good coaching that you've gotten in your life and what made them good coaches?
Um, yes, I don't know if I had any good coaches that I will remember. A good coach to me would be somebody I would mirror and admire and try to become myself. I never got to know anybody of those. I don't know.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yep, I think so too. I mean, I really tried to find this mentor in my life, or whatever you're gonna call it, the coach. I played sports, and think a good coach was to teaching me to be the best I could. But I don't know. Maybe I'm hard to coach or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that you kind of hit on something right there. Maybe just not giving yourself enough credit for it, but they generally have this desire and a legitimate care for your growth and your improvement. And they generally
Yeah,
want you to get better.
yeah. You would think. Yeah, I agree. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird. I've been thinking about it many, many times in my life, actually. So,
Uh-huh.
that, because I was thinking that I would find somebody I would admire so much, and try to stay with that person and learn as much as I could, and then maybe following that person. But it never happened. And I don't know, maybe the way I took my experience of my career has been to be independent consultant my whole life.
Yep.
So maybe that has something to do with that you don't really get somebody that close. I work with a lot of good people, but I don't know if I've worked with somebody that I would think that they're coaching me anything,
All right.
that would be wow, that was awesome.
Maybe you and I need to spend a little bit more time together then.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, what you got for us?
I was just going to comment. One of the most important things about a coach is you don't have to be in the same field. You don't even have to know what they do, because the coach, it doesn't matter. The coach is just there to ask questions to help guide you. So the fact that you say, like, hey, I haven't found one, that is kind of disheartening in a little bit, because they don't have to be in the same industry. They don't have to know what you do. They just have to be, like Ken said, somebody that cares enough about you to want to see you grow and help you kind of work through those challenges that you're seeing, and kind of be that coaching person. So food for
Yeah.
thought.
No, and Mike hit a very important aspect on there. It's about asking the right questions.
Yep.
Coaching is really about figuring out, well, what's the right question to ask at that point in time that's going to spurn the most thought and get them kind of thinking about it in a new way. Sometimes that's the simplest thing that we can do as a coach, especially as a leader, as a coach, is ask them a question that forces them to think about it in a different way. But it's all about asking the right questions, and we don't always get it right the first time, and that's okay. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 questions, or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 to kind of figure out what's the right question and how do we ask it in a way that generates the most thought. Yeah. So, Kamisha, I appreciate you kind of joining us. If you'd like to join the conversation a little bit, maybe talk about what you see as coaching and any good coach that you've had in your life.
Yes, my apologies for being late. Sorry about that.
Hey,
But
you're fine.
I can say, as a coach, my previous two managers, her name was Marie Joycel. She actually was my mentor. Being in HR, you're kind of always on an island all by yourself. So just looking at her, how she developed me and how I lead. Is a good example of being a good HR representative. So having the right people around you, especially in this field, makes a great difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And we oftentimes use that, coach, teach, mentor term interchangeably. There are a lot of overlap between all of those things, but really when we think about, the coach, as Mike kind of pointed out, may or may not even be in your field, may have nothing to do with the technical aspects of your job, may not be an expert in that role. A mentor tends to be an expert in the role that you're doing. So, an HR representative, that mentor role, that they tend to be an expert in the field. Coaching, all you got to do is be able to ask good questions.
Right.
Um, some expertise helps, as Mike pointed out. Sometimes you get stuck, and having some level of expertise can help. Have some ideas or some guide or something like that. But oftentimes I'll be coaching somebody, and I'll just be like, I wonder what this would work. I wonder how throw this out and see if that works. Sometimes just some ideas. Because I promise you, I'm not giving Mike any technical expertise on how to be a chief technology officer. I have no idea how to do that, but I can still ask him challenging questions to make him think about things differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let's see here. Let's hear from a couple others. Let's see who else just joined in here. Raphael, you just joined kind of a little bit recently here. We're talking a little bit about coaching, and being able to ask questions. And what are some examples of some good coaching that you've had in your life, and what made them a good coach? If you're able to join us, Raphael.
Hi all. Sorry, I'm just gonna be listening for today.
Okay,
In the middle of something right now, but
no
I just
worries.
wanna listen today. Okay, sorry about that.
No worries. How about Mateus? How about you? Any ideas? What are your thoughts on coaching and good coaches for you?
In terms for me, I'd say I never had a formal coach. But for coaching, I would say more on the terms of you need to how to explain that. I'm thinking of something, but I'm trying to put it to words.
Best attempt. No worries. You're good. You're good.
It's more of trying to see the bigger picture, like not on the asking questions portion, but also you see the bigger picture, trying to see on a different point of view, and from that different point of view, or trying to, hey, but how would that person see it? How that other person would see it? And then you ask the question on that scenario, not necessarily you're just asking questions, but seeing from a different perspective. So because like I work in IT, but sometimes or most of the time, I don't know exactly what the problem is. Or like my team comes to me with a problem. I'm like, okay, I don't know the answer to that question, but let's, try to go for a different view of like, if you look from this way or look as the user, and trying to get from different sides. And if you are able to, get the team to think, it helps them also on troubleshooting it. So if you get a coach that can, sometimes he's not really solving the problem for you at all, but he's just look from an other angle, I would say, and it gives you a better place to think on the problem.
Yeah,
that makes
and I
sense.
think you worded that very, very effectively, and I appreciate that. That's a really good point, because you're right. Sometimes we get fixated on a path or on a solution, and the coach can then help us broaden that a little bit and maybe look at it from a different perspective. Yeah. And the other thing I think you kind of highlighted on in your description, which is very effective and helpful, is it's an ability to kind of see things as you see them, as the other person is seeing them. And the common term people use for that is empathy, being able to see things from the other person's perspective, whether we agree with it or disagree with it, but just being able to, at least see it from the other person's perspective. And I think that's a valuable skill as a coach. Yeah. So yeah, lots of good thoughts. Any other thoughts out there on, what makes a good coach or what good coaches need or how they help us? Kind of open it up. Anyone else has any other good ideas on that? So as we think about and digging in a little bit here on the skill of coaching, when we're a leader and we decide, yep, coaching is the right skill right here, and we want to help them grow and we want to make them think for themselves, it can take a couple of different forms. It can kind of be like an on-the-spot coaching where we see something and there's a coachable, teachable moment there, and we're like, oh man, can I give you some coaching on this? And we start a discussion around it, a conversation based on questions. Or it could be something formal where they're saying, hey, I need to work on this as a leader, and and they have scheduled calls and you talk about it. So they can be formal, informal, they can be short, they can be longer. But in all of those conversations, I really want to think about kind of like a 4-part system on there. The first thing we always want to figure out is, well, what's going on? We talk about, what's the issue? And then the second part, that's the fine art of the coach, is figure out, well, what's really going on? What's the real challenge here? What's really happening? On the surface, somebody may say, well, I'm having a hard time having a conversation. Okay, that's what's going on. But what's really going on? You may dig down to it and says, well, I'm scared or I'm uncomfortable because I've had some bad experiences, and I don't like giving people bad news because I want everybody to be happy. Well, okay. Now we're starting to dig into what's really going on and what do we need to overcome. And then that third step then is, well, what does an ideal situation look like? What do you want the future state to be? And then the fourth part is, well, what do you need to do to get there? What does that look like? What are the commitments you're willing to make? What are you willing to do? And sometimes, what are you not willing to do is an important thing to ask. So Jamie, think a little bit about that and think about something that you got going on right now. What's an example of somebody that you may need to do a little bit of coaching with in your organization, maybe someone that's got a growth opportunity, but you just see them like kind of hung up on something. You have any example thing going on like that?
I got to think about that one a little bit. There's probably a number of opportunities. So I just had somebody come in here. That's why I went off screen. So, there's a manager, there's people from our team here. So we'll try to keep it objective and everything. But, so an individual saw somebody potentially falling asleep while driving a forklift. So, so just talking to that individual, making sure there's not a health issue and everything, but naturally it's a safety issue for sure. So just how we manage that. First making sure the employee's okay. But then secondly, why? Why was that? And we're not sure that it happened for sure. But we did see his head go down while he was driving a forklift, which is concerning.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. You got a couple of choices in there. You can be very direct and you can be very poignant, or it can be an opportunity for understanding, hey, what's going on, and what do you need to do a little bit differently? You're absolutely right. You got a couple of choices in how you handle that. You can be very prescriptive, or you can look at it in some coaching conversations.
So more
What's that?
I said more to come.
Yeah. But as
It's
you think
live.
about all these ideas here, you're right. So what might be a good question that you might ask that individual in a coaching setting versus a telling, scolding setting? What might be a good question you could think of for that?
Tell me what's going on. I mean,
Yeah.
tell me, how you're feeling. And
Yeah.
again, listening and hearing that side of it, verifying whether or not that's really what happened or if there's another scenario
Yeah.
or situation that occurred.
Yeah. And I think Jamie gives us an opportunity here to kind of highlight something that's important as we're coaching to the best extent possible. If we can talk about, facts versus opinions, this is a great opportunity to kind of differentiate those. So if we had to differentiate and say, what is the facts? What did you observe in that instance? Or what did somebody observe in that instance, Jamie?
So the manager happened to be walking through and saw the individual on a forklift with two bales in the clamp, and saw the forklift was moving and his head went down, and was concerned with that and went up to the individual, and the bales actually hit a beam, and then the employee snapped out of it. So
Yeah.
whether that was a medical condition, whether that was, so
Yeah.
first and foremost, making sure the employee's okay. But then secondly, what happened?
Right. Yeah. And if we think about that, the fact is they saw the head drop.
Correct.
Now, the story we start telling ourselves after that may or may not be true. Falling asleep may or may not be true, but that's the story we're telling ourselves. That's not a fact.
Correct.
Coaching becomes really interesting, and we have to live in the world of facts with coaching, not in the world of what story are we telling ourselves. The fact is we observed a head drop and we observed the forklift,
Moving.
Those are the facts we saw. They're observable. We could take a picture or video of them. The opinion we make is he fell asleep. That's
reasonable suspicion.
right. And I'm not saying that our story is wrong. We just have to acknowledge as a coach, that's the story. That's not a fact. The fact is his head dropped. The story is he fell asleep. May or may not be true. But that's an important differentiation that we always need to think about when we're coaching is what are the observable facts? And the more we can stick in the realm of fact, the more effective our coaching conversations are. So we need to be mindful of the opinions we find because they can get us in trouble sometimes. All right. But that's an important thing. Live in the world of fact when you're coaching, and observations and observable behavior. And we have safer conversations when we live in that realm than if we live in the, opinion or judgment or assessment or conclusion realm. All right. Yeah. So that's a great question to ask them. Hey, what's going on? Tell me what happened. Much better than, are you okay?
Yes, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine. Doesn't tell us anything of value, anything of information. We don't have anything to go anywhere with that. So oftentimes our coaching is a little bit around those observations and helping them unpack those observations and figure those things out. So one of the things that's important if you have an opportunity and you're looking at maybe a formal coaching plan or formal opportunity where somebody's come in and saying, hey, I'd like some help on this. And, it may be on, a new skill or a new opportunity, or, I'd like to learn how to become a HSE manager instead of just an HSE rep. Okay, well, let's, figure out what do those skills look like and coach you on those. Those become vastly different. So I'll give you one example on here. We'll go through a bunch of the stuff we've already gone. We already covered most of this anyway. I'll do this one here. So this is a form that I use, and whether you have this form or you're thinking about this, really just thinking about, well, what are we trying to accomplish? What are the goals? What are we working towards? What are the key responsibilities an individual has? What are their areas of strength that they have? What are their opportunities for improvement look like? And in some ways, thinking through and having a plan that says, well, here's how I think I can help this individual, knowing that, when reality hits, no plan's going to survive exactly, once it really hits reality. But really thinking about, what does that look like? So Renee, happy you joined us. Good to see you again. Thank you for joining us again.
Oh, I hadn't been on for a while, so I was trying to get on here. I was getting off a coaching call.
That's what I was just kind of wondering here. So I'd like to pick your brain a little bit here and maybe share your experience and how you're coaching people a little bit now, and what are some of the things you find successful in those coachings, and what are some of the things that you're like, yeah, that's not working. Maybe share a little bit of your experience with the group for us, please.
Yeah, I coach for outplacement agency. That's part of the pipeline that I do. So they have been laid off, and they're executives, senior leaders. So what I'm finding is there's a lot of frustration because a lot of these folks, they're like 15-year, 20, 25-year people. And so their thought is, this is my last job, and then they're going to transition to retirement, pretty much. So I do like a wellness check. I kind of start there first. And then just kind of talk to them about how they're feeling about the layoff and all of that, kind of get their mindset, because are they even open to coaching yet? Right? Once we kind of settle that, and if they have the support system and things of that nature, then I'll ask them what they would like to do. Are they want to go back into corporate America? Or, if they say, I really don't want to, which a lot of these people are saying.
Yeah.
They don't want to. They don't want to start
Like,
over.
I'm not going back there. No way. That's a madhouse. That's
Like,
okay.
I have a mortgage, I still have kids in college, but a lot of them do not want to. I'm just telling you, they don't. But then I offer them the entrepreneur route and kind of do the business coaching from there. But for the most part, the executives, senior executives, are a little bit different than say just your regular professionals. A little bit different. Um, I just kind of leave it open to them and just partner with them. Not getting into the container with them, making sure you're staying outside of it so that you can be objective
Mm-hmm.
and really ask the open-ended questions to get them really thinking about what they would like to do, what's going on with them, and really hone in to their emotions.
Okay.
Right?
Elaborate a little bit more on that container analogy. I get it, but elaborate on that for the group.
Yeah, typically when you're coaching, there's a temptation or a tendency, especially if somebody's like really emotional, right? Because you may have people that are really upset that might start crying or whatever, right? You can't get in the container with them because when you do that, then you lose your objectivity, right? You let them feel the feelings and just kind of coach them through that and give them a lot of um, validation, right? Acknowledgement, that AV, acknowledgement, validation, a lot of that, but let them feel it and
Mm-hmm.
definitely ask open-ended questions. That's the main thing, right? Those closed-ended questions where they're just like yes or no's. You don't really want to do that in coaching so much. It's just keeping it open and keep the dialogue and kind of the goals. What's the goal of the conversation? What do they want to talk about first and foremost? Why is it important to them?
Mm-hmm.
Um, what's the outcome they want to have for that particular discussion, right? Always go towards a goal. Don't keep it so open for
Yeah.
them. So it's kind of targeted, a little bit targeted.
Yeah. And I think that as a leader, when you're coaching somebody, that's challenging
Mm-hmm.
It's very challenging because you in your mind probably know the answer. You've probably done it hundreds of times before. You can probably just say, just go do this, and you're going to be right.
Yep.
And that becomes a very big challenge for us as leaders to actually coach. The phrase I like using is that when you're having a coaching conversation with somebody, you're coaching the person. You're not coaching the problem.
Yep.
You got to remember that you're coaching the person. So, Jamie, in your particular example you gave us earlier, if you were coaching this manager, you're not coaching on how to solve the sleeping problem or the individuals, you're coaching him on how to have the discussion better and how to engage that, just as an example. And that may not be your role in this particular instance, because you said you're in Wisconsin, right? So
Correct.
that may be Bob's job, but but for the analogy, we'll just follow that trend a little bit and figure that out. Because again, you're here. All right. Well, what do you think you ought to do about it? What challenges are you seeing? What's holding you back from doing that? Not necessarily like, well, did you ask him this, or what about that, or did you check on this? There's a broad distinction in there. Again, as you're coaching, as we hit multiple times in here, it's about asking that open-ended question and coaching the individual in how to handle the situation, not telling them what to do in that analogy.
Really
so that's
helping
important.
them.
Go ahead,
It's really
Jamie.
helping them come up with the options to the way forward, right? To come up with the solution.
Yeah. And Mike hit on it a little earlier in the discussion, and that is, there's that fine balance when you're having those conversations and you're asking those open-ended questions and the person just doesn't see it. And that's going to happen. And that gets frustrating because you're like, well, I don't know how to ask this another way. I've asked it 3 times. They're just not seeing where I'm trying to take them or where I think they need to go. And they get frustrated because they're like, look, I don't know what you want. You can see it sometimes, and sometimes they'll voice it, sometimes they won't. So what I have to think about when I'm coaching somebody is that I have to identify when they're stuck. And I need to make sure I don't jump in too soon, because that's my tendency. I want to solve the problem for them because that's what I do. I solve problems. That's what I want. I want to solve a problem. But I have to keep in mind, I'm not solving a problem. I'm helping a person solve a problem. So my guidance that I use for me that helps me, and if it helps you, great. And Mike already talked a little bit about it, is that, I wait till they're stuck. Like I've asked the question 2 or 3 different ways and they're not seeing past it. And then I ask their permission first. Can I tell you how somebody else might have solved a problem like this? Or can I tell you how somebody else approached something like this? That's probably the only time I ask an open or a closed-ended question like that, is if I'm asking for permission. But for me, that prevents me from jumping in too soon and solving the problem for them. Is I wait till they're stuck and I ask permission first. And then only then do I give them an example. And it may be one of mine, it may be somebody else's. I usually try to do it in a third person sense instead of, well, I did this. I say, hey, one time another leader, I may be thinking, John in my brain here, he had a similar problem, and here's the steps that he took about it. If you put it in a third person versus a first person story, it allows the other person to see themselves as the actor in the stage. If you tell it in the first person, they're going to see you doing it. And you want them to see themselves doing it. So even if you're the person who did it, still tell the story in a third person sense. Hey, a leader saw this, and here's a couple of the questions that they asked or they dug into. And they dug into a couple things like this, or they asked a question like this. So that can happen. That's just a cool idea. That's a technique. It works for me. And it prevents me from jumping in too soon and trying to solve the problem, not coach the person. Yeah. Let's talk just a little bit about, within our coaching session and our discussion at any point in time, we're going to have to give some feedback as part of that. So a couple thoughts here on feedback. You know, solicited versus unsolicited, which generally is more well received and is more effective? John, what do you think?
Solicited.
Yeah, when they ask for it and they say, "Hey, I'd like to understand how to do this differently," you know, we need to be a little bit mindful of that unsolicited feedback. Sometimes it's not well appreciated. But I'll oftentimes ask the question, "Hey, can I give you a little bit of feedback on this?" I'll just ask that permission. And even though they may not ask for it up front, at least now I know they got their permission to give them some feedback on it. So the specific versus general. Jamie, what do you think? Which one's going to be more effective for us?
Specific.
Yeah. Hey, I observed you nodding your head. Versus, you know, hey, I saw you driving crazy. You know, very specific versus very general. Hey, I observed you run into this. Yeah. Very specific versus general. Kamisha, what do you think here? What's the difference between being descriptive and being evaluative?
Being descriptive.
Yeah. What do you see as the difference? And obviously, I think you just described that descriptive is more effective.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Give us an example maybe of how we can be a little bit more descriptive and less evaluative.
I noticed that you were on the stacker, but unfortunately you weren't stacking the boxes correctly versus, oh, you might want to stack the boxes to the left versus to the right. Just a generic example.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of the things we need to be mindful of that doesn't help us any when we're coaching are labels. You know, hey, you're lazy, you don't care. You know, those are evaluations. They're your opinions. In coaching, you need to try to avoid opinions because then the person you're coaching might argue your opinion. No, that's your opinion. You fell asleep. That's your opinion. That's not a fact. You know, they may argue that. No, I didn't. I just, you know, I saw something and I looked down. Don't know yet. We'll find out.
A long blank.
Just rested my eyes. That was all.
Mhm.
My dad would always say, "No, I didn't fall asleep. I'm just resting my eyes."
I've been told praying before.
Ah, like that one. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So timely is an interesting one. Notice it doesn't say immediate. Timely is when that's appropriate. You know, if they're, you know, out on the floor and there's a ton of noise and there's a bunch of things going on and you know you're running the machines and they got 6 things they got to go do, that might not necessarily be the best time. So just keep in mind timely is immediately. But if you go to somebody and say, "Hey, 2 weeks ago when I saw you driving the forklift," you know, they're like, "When? I don't even know. I don't even remember doing that. What was I doing that day? That was how long ago?" You know. So, you know, that timely, figure out when's the right time when they're in a mode to receive it, but and it's still recent enough that they remember it. Dosed versus bombarded. You ever been hit with like 7 things you got to do? If you're hit with 7 things you got to do, how many of those are you going to remember? Maybe 1, maybe 2. You know, I figure that in coaching, stick with one main topic, one main idea. You know, work one thing at a time. Don't try to work 6 of them. Pick either the one that's most important to them or the most urgent or the most important. You know, figure out which one is the one that I want to focus on and, you know, and dose it, be focused. This is kind of along those same lines of specific and descriptive. You know, if you can't take a picture of it or a video of it, then it's an opinion. It's a story. Doesn't mean your story's wrong. tells a good story, but verifiable facts. And I'm sure, in this particular case, Jamie, I'll keep going back to yours because it makes for a good case study. I'm sure
Thanks.
I'm sure you got lots of video all over the place, and I'm sure that it's captured somewhere on tape. Well, on what happened would be my
Probably
guess.
not.
But if not, that's all right too. Or somebody saw it, firsthand accounts. Obviously, video is better because it doesn't have a bias.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you get an individual's judgment on it, their bias is going to come into play, and their opinions are going to come into play. It's just how we are. That's the nature of us. But if we can verify it externally, that's better. If there's numbers associated with it, if there's logs. And then let's talk a little bit about this owned versus attributed. Mike, what's kind of the difference between owning it and attributing something, and why is it valuable in coaching or which one is more valuable in coaching?
Owning, I think, would be way more valuable. So if you own something, you have ownership. It's yours versus attributed to you. Yeah, I would say probably ownership.
When you're coaching, you have to take ownership of it. Hey, I believe that we can do this differently, or I believe in this, or I observe this, or I. If you just say, hey, Bob wants you to do this. Well, that may be true, but it's a lot less powerful than I want you to do this. I believe in this. So when you're coaching, having that personal ownership of it and saying I versus somebody else, it's more effective way of communicating. All right. Well, oops, totally missed that. I shut off my share, but that's okay. Don't need it anymore. So that's kind of really the discussion that we have. I'll open it up a little bit for questions on coaching, for thoughts on how to make it a little bit differently. I'll open it up, and John, maybe I'll start with you. Thoughts, ideas, questions?
I think it's been very valuable. I never really have done things in third person. I've always done, this is what I would do in that situation, which is probably not always the right thing to do. So that's a good takeaway from today. I think that's going to go a long way for me.
So yeah, do me a favor then, John. Try it out, and then when I get a chance to get down to that Georgia plant and I talk to you in person, to meet you in person, which I'm sure I will, I'm curious to see how that's going for you and what value you found in it.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Annette, what about you? Key takeaway, key idea, key thought? What are you willing to do a little differently, Annette?
No, it's been great actually. A lot of good tips, I think. I think many times is that in my own case that people don't understand how I do things or find things. So I think that even if some people try to help, but they don't understand really how I do it or my profession, I think. So
Yep. Yeah, you have a vastly different, experience than a lot of other people. You're worldly, you've seen the world, been in lots of different countries and speaking in lots of different languages. You're absolutely right. You got to value that and see what that opportunity is for you.
yeah. No, but I think it's good. I mean, everything has been valid. I mean, it's really good communication or inputs. Yeah.
Good. Well, we may end a little bit early then, because normally I always want to start on time and end on time. But I really appreciate everybody's discussions. I'll stick on if anybody wants to have any other discussions and stuff. And Kamisha, thank you very much for joining us. And I think everybody else had been on at one point in time before, except for Jamie and John. So appreciate those opportunities. Appreciate getting to know people. And then, as always, my shameless plug, I do leadership development programs. And if there's something that I can do to help you with those leadership programs, Mike's one of my proud graduates on that. Veronica was too, but she had to drop off. Looking forward to continuing to work with McKinley Paper and Packaging Company, and and looking forward to seeing how I can continue to serve you guys on that. So whatever I can do to help you out on that, happy to do so, and looking forward to continuing to do that. But I'll stick around as long as anybody wants to chat.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
All
All
right,
right, thanks,
thank
Mike.
you.
All right, Jamie. I didn't ask, is it Jamie or Jaime?
Jamie.
Okay. I should have asked earlier to make sure I did it right. I didn't
Oh,
want to-
good.
I made an assumption, but you didn't correct me either. Renee, thanks for joining in. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. I was finally able to catch one.
So, and I still want you to help me host one too. So think about that a little
Oh,
bit.
okay.
Think about a good topic that, you've been to enough of these. You understand how we do these. You got a tremendous amount of insight and some of the things that you're going on. Pick a topic that resonates with you that you can lead an hour discussion for, and I'd love to have you host one of these with me.
Okay. Yeah, I will do that. Thank you for the sending the invite for that.
Yep, and that's again first Wednesday of every month. So if you pick it early, then you can have your choice
Yeah.
of windows.
Yeah.
But next one obviously will be first Wednesday of August.
Okay.
Can't remember what day that is, 3rd or 4th, I think, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Something
Because
like
the
that.
5th and 6th, I have to be at the
Fifth,
HR deal. All
5th of,
right.
5th of August.
It's the
5th of August is the Wednesday.
All right, thank you, Mike. 5th of August.
Yeah. I would love to
well,
see
it
that,
won't
by
be
the way,
August.
Renee.
It's gonna be September.
No, you're good. But
You'll
Renee,
have to be at the HR Houston thing, and that's the 5th and the 6th.
oh, nice.
Oh yeah, that's where I first met you. Was at the HR Houston thing
Yeah,
like 4 or 5 years ago.
Because I have to renew my certification this year. So I got to get those 17.
I can get you 30 if you want to come to my leadership course.
Yeah,
Highly recommend it.
I can get you 30
that's true.
because of the PDCs, right? Is the
Yeah.
yeah. I'm certified through SHRM. My October course. If you need 30,
Do you
I can
do
get you
SHRM
30.
and HRCI?
So I know they're through SHRM, and I'm not sure if they go through HRCI or not. But I know for definitely SHRM. But
Because I do both.
oftentimes, whatever SHRM takes, the HRCI takes.
Yeah, I do both, and then ICF takes those too.
Yeah. So, yep,
And
ICF
again-
stuff is good. And I had some people try to say, hey, well, I got a PE. Can this count towards that? I'm like, I don't know. I'll give you a certificate and you can try it and see if it works or not. I'm not, we don't have an agreement with them.
Right.
We do with SHRM and with the Project Management Institute, and then surprisingly also with the with CPAs.
Yeah.
With that organization as well. So
Mhm.
accountants. I don't know if I've ever had anybody claim those credits or not. I don't think I ever have. But
When I was at my old employer, our accountant, she was a CPA, and she had to do hers.
Yep. I can help with those.
It works for my cyber certs, so that works.
All right. Well, there you go. Cool. I'm glad it helped.
But Renee, I'm with Ken on this. If you would do a session, it would be very valuable, especially because I'm in the same boat as some of your clients recently laid off trying to find
really?
opportunities. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
unfortunately. So yeah, anything that you can share, anything like that would be wonderful. But I do appreciate all the stuff you do because unfortunately my old employer did provided me with some career coaching. It's
They
been
did?
somewhat helpful, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's just hard. Are you in Houston?
Yeah, I'm in Houston.
Same. I'm in Bel Air area.
Oh, okay. I'm kind of over by I'm in West Chase.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right around the corner.
Yeah.
Hop, skip, and a jump. Nice.
Yeah. So, maybe we can possibly hook up and I can maybe help out with some stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll connect the two of
yeah.
you together.
Appreciate it, Ken. Yeah, it's been about 8 months for me, unfortunately. So I've been
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's taking. Yeah.
Random other question there, Renee. Have you taken your boyfriend over there to Pastelitos yet?
He's been there before.
Oh, okay, good.